Welcome back to another episode of Season 5 of the RAG podcast. As you guys know by now, this is the number one podcast across the recruitment sector globally. And we've always been on a mission to help recruitment agencies grow by interviewing founders and telling their stories of success from startup all the way to scale up and exit. Well, this season we're a little bit different. How do you, as a recruitment leader and founder, maintain your family and friendships whilst being the best person at work? How do you stay physically fit mentally and emotionally? And how do you find time for yourself in the madness? How do you find time for self-interest, for hobbies, and self-improvement? Well, to help you with this, I'm going to be interviewing someone every single week that can demonstrate experience in one or more of these areas. So I'm going to talk to recruitment founders and also some experts from outside the industry who can deep dive into things like relationships and health and well-being. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy today's show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the RAG podcast. On this week's episode, I was joined by probably one of the most, someone I've got so much respect for. I don't even know if I can find the words to describe what this guy's going through. This was the most dramatic and emotional and heartbreaking episode I've ever recorded. My guest was in tears throughout this episode. I was welling up throughout this episode. And it was genuinely something that I felt I've wanted to share, but also been nervous to share ever since. So I was joined by Liam Thomas. Liam is the founder of Highfield Professional Solutions, a recruitment business headquartered in the South Coast. Beautiful office of 45 people in between Southampton and Winchester. and he founded the business with his friend and his colleague Sam 15 years ago. Two young, fit, healthy 25-year-olds with no fear launch a business like almost everyone who listens to this show, with grand plans of world domination. And whilst that was going really well, I think 6-7 years into the business, 2014, when they just started growing headcount and they had their own offices, Liam's business partner, Sam, was diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer. Having been pushed back from the GP for a series of months, it was finally diagnosed and everything changed on that day, as you can imagine. What followed was 7 years of treatment, 7 years of running the business, 7 years of, as Liam would say, denial, emotions that you probably wouldn't wish on anyone. That culminated in Sam unfortunately passing away in September 2021. In this episode, Liam talks about everything. He's open. He's emotional. You know, there was tears. There was all sorts in here. First time he's mentioned it on the public domain, and I'm just so grateful that he gave me the opportunity to talk to him about it and ask the questions. I genuinely think this will impact everyone who listens to it. We can all empathize with this, and you know, we all think these things are not going to happen to us, but they can. So I genuinely hope that, one, you can learn from this episode, you can feel for Liam and the family and Sam, and you can make some actionable choices moving forward off the back of what you pick up. You will definitely not regret listening to this one. Right, let's get into today's episode without further ado. Liam, welcome to the RAG podcast.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. I feel like you should. I've always wanted you to be on this. I think we spoke about it a couple of years ago, you being on it, and it's never quite happened. So finally got you in the room.
Got it over the line. Yeah, it's the beauties of WhatsApp. It's the great way of persuading people to do things.
Do you know what? I do look at it and think sometimes, imagine we didn't need email, we just had WhatsApp. Like, it's so much faster to get all the people. People just respond. I've got clients that'll ignore me for 2 weeks. I'll ping them WhatsApp, and you know that whole dread of them, the blue tick, they'll just respond. So yeah, I got you on the show via WhatsApp. That's the truth. But Perfect. Liam, for those that don't know you, obviously I feel like I know you really well, but for those that don't, can you just give us I've done a little introduction, but please just give us the overview of you and Highfield, like the kind of elevator pitch of who you guys are.
So I've been in recruitment 20 years this year, 5 of which working for a corporate business and 15 working for Highfield. Set it up 15 years ago. Business partner Sam, based near Winchester, predominantly Highfield businesses, UK and Europe, contract focused, built environment, white collar. And then we have a Data X business, which is international, built environment again, but very much focused in the data center sector. So that's us in a nutshell.
Wicked. So you've got how many people in the business?
It's about 45 of us now. Sales around 20 million. Last year, I think like everyone's in recruitment, it was the best year. Managed to convert, I think 38% of NFI into EBIT, which is something we're particularly proud of.
Wow.
And yeah, this year's going really well as well. So just about to close Q1 and 44% up on last year's Q1. So I think like everyone in the recruitment sector at the moment, things are quite rosy.
Yeah. And what you're in your own. I mean, I came to your offices about 3 years ago, I think 3-4 years ago, and I was like, "This is wicked." You're still there, right? Is it Southampton, Winchester? Whereabouts exactly?
Yeah, we're kind of in the sticks between Southampton and Winchester. We'd evolved from a corporate park on a big sort of faceless junction 9 of the M27, if anyone knows it. So we want something a bit different. So we're in a converted barn, got 7,500 square feet in the countryside, which is where we call home in the middle of Durley near Winchester.
I loved it. I remember when I came, there was like some wicked cars in the car park. It just had this, like you say, out of town vibe. But when you got in the office, it had the pump that you could be in central London. So it was wicked. So you started with you and Sam 15 years ago. Can you take us back to that starting point? Like, where did the name? Where's Highfield come from?
Well, it was the name. It was in the area where Sam actually grew up in Southampton, an area of Highfield, and the name of our football team as well.
Right.
And I guess we'd always been massively into sport, both of us. And I think thinking of those company names is something that you can spend a bit too much time on.
Yeah.
And Sam came up with a name, and he was like, "Well, yeah, should we just call the business Highfield?" And then it was, as you probably did yourself, going on Company's House. What versions of Highfield have been taken? So I'd like to say there was some groundbreaking reason behind the professional solutions, but the reality was it was an available name on Company's House at the time.
Love it. The thing is, with me, I was obsessed with having a made up word. I wanted something, because I worked for a company called Venquist, which was made up. So that was kind of, I think, depending on where you worked before, you either do or don't want what you've come from. And for me, I was like, I love that made up word. And honestly, I've got probably own about 55 domains of the worst made up words you could ever imagine. I could sell them, probably make no money. And I remember we'd get one and we'd be like, fuck, someone's going to get this. Let's buy it now. And me and Amber would be like, look back at an hour later and go, did we just buy another domain? They're shocking. They're absolutely shocking. When did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Like, when did you and Sam tell us a story about making that decision?
We were very young. I think that was the problem. We were both in our first real job, started within a week of each other at the corporate business we were at before.
Did you know each other beforehand?
We went to college together and we were friendly, but it was a sort of, we would bump into each other for a drink or see each other on a night out, and more to say hello to. We weren't friends, but knew of each other. And then when we joined as a part of a graduate intake within a week of each other, we were as a familiar face, and we kind of just paired up from then. And we're there for sort of 4.5, 5 years. Brilliant business. They were private then, and great place to learn, cut your teeth. Really enjoyed working together. And they were transitioning towards IPO. So obviously a lot of things changed in the business at that time. And I think I took Sam out for lunch one day and said, fancy doing this, mate? And he was like, yeah, all in, 100%. So
was he already thinking it, or do you think you were just compelling enough that he was like, fuck it, let's do it?
Yeah, I don't think I was particularly compelling. I think we were probably 25. So we had that kind of very misguided arrogance of youth. We thought we were very good at what we did, and in reality, we were very good at filling jobs and pretty terrible at absolutely everything else. So there was a lot of overconfidence that comes with probably being 25 and fairly successful in filling jobs. But it didn't take much of a pitch, to be honest. In that one lunchtime, we spoke about it, and he was all in.
Well, at 25, I mean, I didn't do it at 20. I got into recruitment at 25. You've got some people do, but the majority of people have no real like responsibilities, right? You might have a girlfriend, you might be renting, you might have bought a house. Can you remember what your lives were like at that point?
Yeah, so we both had girlfriends at the time, but yeah, definitely no kids, no marriage. I think we maybe both had mortgages. Yeah, we did both. I think we both had mortgages and owned like maybe our first places.
Yeah,
But in reality, no real commitments
yeah,
or anything that was going to hold us down from stopping us doing something. And like I think we just had the attitude of the worst thing that will happen is we'll completely mess it up, and then
yeah.
someone will take it, someone will take us on. We never thought that would happen, but that was always quite a nice safety net. And when there's not kids in the mix or
Yeah,
anything like that, I'd hate to do it now. If I'm completely honest with you, it would terrify me. But at that stage of my life, of our lives, it just seemed like the natural thing to do.
well, that's it. And I mean, I remember being 30 and I was in a relationship, no kids, bought my house, same sort of, was older than you, but it's still, there was no reason not to do it. I think at 25, I wish I was 25 when I did it. I think that, because
Yeah,
now, 15 years later, you're going to reap the rewards of those decisions that some people I meet are like late 30s, early 40s, and they're thinking about starting now. And you're right, they've got kids and they've got mortgages and they've got a lot of fear. I find there's a lot of fear involved. The older you get, you seem to be more, you kind of can imagine the pitfalls a bit easier. You've got a bit more wisdom. Whereas when you're younger, you're like, I'll fucking nail it.
literally, yeah, that's exactly how it was. There's pros and cons to both, and
Yeah.
there's absolutely no fear, which is a big positive. But in some ways, you really don't know what you don't know at that age,
Yeah,
and
you're gonna mess shit up.
yeah, we would have probably done a few things differently, including, me and Sam, who are not the best people at process in the world, trying to do payroll and pay contractors and things like that ourselves. You just think, why on earth did we do that for so long?
So what was it like the early days then? Was it just the two of you back bedroom type story? Let us know, what was the early days like?
Yeah, so my parents had a home office. We were very much like, we don't want to work at home, we want to be together. And luckily enough, my parents had an office at the bedroom of their house that they were no longer using. And we said, yeah, no problem. We'll be there for 6 months. And they were like, great, come in. It'd be great to have you around. And we kind of went in there, worked every day, quite long hours, ate them out of house and home. Didn't pay any electricity bills. They wouldn't take any money for. I think we used to get them a turkey at Christmas, and that was our rent for the year. But we ended up with the financial crash in 2008. We ended up being there about 4 or 5 years in.
Wow.
So I still don't think we ever paid any rent. So yeah, sorry, mum and dad, for that. But they got a few turkeys out of us.
They got to, do you know what? They got to see you. That's part of it, though, isn't it? I think when you move out and you fly the nest, parents just want to see you. Like, they just want to be around you. So I bet they loved it. What did you hire anyone then, or did you just keep it you and Sam for the first 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, we had we recruited my sister for a little while, so she was kind of in another room, just doing some delivery stuff for us, and that was kind of on a flexible basis. And then we had someone lined up to join us in 2009, and then I think the same week, like Lehman Brothers went under, and we were like, oh, maybe we should just hold off a little bit. So we kind of just said, look, we're going to postpone it for a little while, and the markets that we were dealing with in the UK, it was like somebody turned off a tap.
Yeah.
We'd never experienced any of the bad times. So again, this is one of the naiveties of youth. We'd never worked in a recession before.
Yeah.
We didn't really understand what was happening because we'd never been in a situation where our clients didn't need us. The market that we were in, which was UK built environment design, was completely decimated. So that was when we had to start looking overseas. So we started growing the business space in the Middle East, Dubai, Qatar, Bahrain, and essentially exclusively worked in that market from between 2010 to 2013. And then I think we took our first official person on, like with a proper contract, and got a proper office in 2012.
Right. So that was bang on 10 years ago then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Had you made a good living at that point? Had you two enjoyed the kind of lean nature of the business, and obviously tough market, but must have had some pretty low overheads as well?
Yeah, we were incredibly boring, to be honest, and we were the fees were really, really good, especially when we were doing big contracts overseas. But it was always, let's put money aside for a rainy day. So we were paying ourselves relatively little amounts of money, and we were doing okay. But it was really about building that war chest,
Right.
and keep sort of putting the coffers away, and because we didn't know when the next financial crisis was going to come, so we were actually really reserved. We worked a lot of hours, and it was a big treat for ourselves to finish at 3 o'clock on the Friday and go to the pub. So yeah, we were very disciplined in what we were doing at all that time, and I guess building the financial foundations for the future, which means we can do what we're doing now, so that the footings of the business were really kind of made over those years.
Quick message from our sponsor today. These guys are known as Talent Ticker, and if you're looking for a way to stay ahead of your competition in 2022, Talent Ticker are here to help. So throughout the end of this month, throughout March, any Hoxo listeners who request a demo of Talent Ticker will receive a free, personalized list of leads to help them get a jump on the rest of the year. This is the world's first recruitment intelligence platform. It provides you with an accurate contact information for passive candidates and matches them with companies looking to hire. What is unique about Talent Ticker is that they predict when a company will be hiring based on moves in the market, conversation with investors, all these different things that they have access to, all these data points, whilst giving you the projected hiring roles and contact information for the right people, the hiring managers. Any recruiter who uses this tool will be calling the right person at the right time for the right reason. So don't wait. Go ahead and head over to get.talentticker.ai/Hoxo. The link is in the podcast comments, and claim your free leads today. Go and get that and make the most of Q2. So then 2012, what happened next when you got sick? You're out of the house, you're out of the family. Was your sister still involved?
No, she wasn't by then. I think she probably had enough of me. Yeah, she wasn't involved anymore. So she went on to do very well in kind of software sales. So right. Yeah, no, first just took a graduate straight from uni, someone we didn't know. He's literally only just left us about a year ago, actually. So he was with us 10 years. And then we just sort of slowly and steadily grew from there, really. Took people on and grew the business, I guess, until we got to where we are today.
So what was the place you moved to? It wasn't like what you are today. What was the
no, it was. It was cheap, and rough and ready is probably the best way to put it. But it was in an old converted mill. Yeah. The best thing about it that really attracted us to there was the fact they had lots of different offices available. So it's a bit like a really old-fashioned WeWork. So right. we started off in a 4-man office, and then they moved us into an 8-man, and then they had lots of flexibility. And I think we grew to about 30 people there, maybe. And then we just took over the car park and realised, it was time for us to grow. We've moved out. We've grown up a little bit now to, where we are now. So yeah, it was good. It was a really good place to start because the overheads were low and we were able to expand without too much time.
Did you always go down the graduate model with talent? Did you always go for that junior trainee model?
Yeah, I'd like to say we had a strategy about it, but our internal hiring's been, I'd say, variable over the years. Always try to look for really good young talent, but then as recruiters we do get attracted to those shiny new things sometimes. When someone comes with a CV that's a bit too good to be true, we normally took those people on as well who didn't always work out quite as well as someone we were training ourselves. So it's been a bit mixed, and it's helped shape our hiring plan and strategy that we've done today. So we've had a mix of both over the years.
Right. And then look, the serious nature of this episode was what I want to talk about is obviously Sam's no longer with us, your business partner, which is just heartbreaking, and it's not something you expect, right? So first, my question, we'll go into the story, but my question was, when you started off the business with Sam, what was the vision? Like, together, you've got, because I remember me and Amma didn't really have a fucking vision, right? We just were like, we think this is going to work. We didn't have a clue. Headcount, size, locations, like the way we are now, 5 years later, remote business, multiple, South Africa, UK, all this stuff. I couldn't have told you I wanted to do that. Did you always know you wanted to grow a business? Like, what were you and him setting out to do?
I think a part of it was to trying to create the environment that we found when we joined the corporate business when it was a bit smaller. A really good, somewhere that people loved coming to work every day.
Mm.
Obviously, massively ambitious for the company. We knew we always wanted to grow the business. It was never going to be a lifestyle business. It was always
Right.
something we were passionate about growing. To say there was any kind of strategy about that from two 25-year-olds would be a bit of a stretch. That's developed over the years, but yeah, it was very much about being a brilliant place to work and growing something that's meaningful, and yeah, a place that's got the respect of its clients and candidates as well. That was always been important to us.
So tell us a story when it comes to Sam. So he was diagnosed with cancer in the past. So tell us, where were you at the point? Like, where was the business? And can you tell us a story of the lead up to that? What happened?
Yeah, it was 2014, and we've been, I guess, in official offices for 2 years, probably 2-3 years at that point. And yeah, he got sort of kind of out of the blue of nowhere, very fit, healthy guy, be the last person you'd expect it to happen to. And I guess, yeah, he got diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer.
How did that? How did it? If you don't mind me asking, why did he get checked out? Like, what was the issue?
Well, we kind of like two normal best mates, really. We sort of, you don't necessarily talk about each other's personal problems or
No.
ailments that much, really. We just used to come to work and get on with it. But I remember him saying to me, he said, "This is a bit of a funny conversation, mate. But have you ever had piles before?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think so. And he was like, "Because the doctor thinks I've got them, but they're really bloody painful." And I was like, I thought, look, this is a bit strange. It's not like Sam at all. He just got on with everything. And I remember saying, go and get it checked out if you think it's not right. And went back and forth to the GP quite a few times with stomach pains. But we're just quite resilient, I think, as human beings. I think you have to be in the job we do.
Yeah,
and he never really complained. But I think 3 or 4 times of going back to the GP with symptoms that he was having, he finally got referred. And then obviously had a scan, and then they realised that there was a 14 centimetre tumour that had grown out of his bowel and attached to his spine.
Wow. So what can you remember when he told you the news?
Yeah, so my son was born at the same sort of time, and it was a tricky period. We didn't have an easy birth with him, and I think Sam wasn't maybe being as communicative as he could have been at that period. So I kind of twigged something was up, and I went around to see him, I think a few days after my son was born, and it was clear that something wasn't right, and then kind of got the news out of him.
All right, so you actually had to ask him, and he wasn't like, he didn't just ring you up. He didn't want to ruin your moment with your son, I imagine, either, did he?
Exactly. We'd had a bit of a tricky sort of emergency C-section and that kind of thing. So we were going through our own stuff. But obviously, I knew he had this scan going on, and he was worried about it. So I think it was he was trying to protect me, but then I was thinking, we've got to talk about this at some point. And I think I popped round to see him, and it was pretty obvious it wasn't good news.
Wow. And what was he? Did he have a child or a wife at that point?
Yeah, see, his boy. So Finney would have been maybe 4. Maybe 2 or 3 at the time, pretty young. Obviously very, very challenging.
So what do you? I know I literally can't even imagine. Like, what do you guys do at that point? Because you've got a business, you've got wives, you've got children. You've got you've got a lot of responsibility now. You're not 25. You hear something like this. What's the first thing that you guys spoke about and actually did as a result of that news?
So I think it's just lucky to be the people we were. We're trying to be as practical about it as we can. You almost treat everything like a project.
Yeah.
And once you process the emotion of it, it's like, right, let's look at the facts. What's the scenario? And trying to almost approach it like a business task. How can we be as practical as possible about it? What are the steps? What do we need to do? Luckily, he had private health cover, which was incredible, and that they looked after him really well. But the reality was he was going to need to undergo a massive operation to deal with it. But I think first there was I can't remember if he had chemo and radio first, but a lot of treatment to make him kind of operable. and then a huge operation. So we just planned it out of, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about work? How are we going to face the challenges, and kind of try to break it down into smaller tasks, which is obviously difficult with all the emotions flying around at the time.
Did he have anyone to talk to? Did he have an outlet? Did he have like obviously you might have been that person, or did he have any kind of like coaches or support that he could?
We're very lucky to have a really close group of friends and his family who are incredible. But I just don't think at the time, if you turn the clock back to 2014, I just don't think that kind of thing was as prevalent then.
I don't think it was either.
I think we're all a lot better now about speaking about mental health and when we're suffering, and getting some external support from people. But back then it just didn't, maybe it was our age, but it just didn't seem as like a thing to do. You kind of stiff up a lip, speak to your friends and family, but we weren't necessarily even aware of any external help like we definitely would be now, and certainly used it myself for good reason.
So what how did you manage? Did he stay in the business? Did he take time out? Because I remember meeting Sam, I think it was about 17, 18. So this was nearly 4 years later. And I remember he came in to meet us, but I don't think he was as active as you were in the business. But how did that next couple of years evolve in terms of his involvement and how you kept the business wheels going?
Yeah, he was always massively involved mentally. Even back then, so many WhatsApps every day with him, but he only was in physically when he could be. Obviously the chemo, I can't even remember how many bouts of chemo he ended up having, radiotherapy as well, and then there was several major surgeries that he had. But he was still involved in the business all the time, and always a great sounding board, but obviously limited physically as to how much he could be here. And there were periods over the last sort of 7 years where he was in the office quite a bit and quite frequently, and you'd almost know nothing was wrong with him. And then obviously periods where he was having more intensive treatment where he couldn't be in the office as much. So but it was great. The way we sort of dealt with it between ourselves was, I would run a lot of the stuff, and we had luckily got really good support of a great team here, and Sam would be involved in all the big decisions and be here when he could, but he was always fully focused and committed, which was great.
Yeah, it's amazing to think. In a way, it's probably nice to have something to think about when you're going through something like that. If you didn't have a business, or if you were off work and you just think about the worst case scenario all day, wouldn't you? Whereas if you've got challenges arising every day, and hopefully it could give you something else to concentrate on, I suppose. So was it when did he ever, over that period of time, was it always terminal? Was it up and down the new? How did it evolve?
It was, I think when he got diagnosed, it was something like there was basically less chance of him being here in 5 years than there was him being here when he got diagnosed. And I wasn't sure if that was adjusted for his age and how physically fit he was, because the guy was an absolute machine.
Yeah.
But he was always sort of overcoming those odds, if that makes sense. So there was always a new challenge, and the cancer spread, went to his lungs, and he overcame that. So he was always kind of beating the next thing that was put in front of him. So I guess there was always a bit of a feeling with everyone that knew him, it doesn't necessarily matter what the next challenge is, he'll just beat that one as well.
And then when did it get to the point where it was no longer going to be that case, when it got too much for him? Was it last year or the year before?
Yeah, no, it was. So in my head, it was kind of never.
I can see that.
So I've been doing some work on the different stages and the processes that you go through when things like that this happen. And I think, I was stuck at the first stage of grief, which is denial for, a very, very long time. And, he moved into a hospice at the end. And I think I was still expecting him to come out of there. So it was a challenge. And I don't think I personally ever really accepted it. Some people accepted it a bit sooner. So mid mid last year, so 2021, we had he organised a surprise birthday for his wife, which was amazing. But he was pretty poorly there, and that was in the summer last year. And I think a lot of people kind of clocked then he's really not doing well. He wasn't well enough to stay over, so he just used to come for the day and then go back. But I think then summertime last year, people were realising, he's in a pretty serious way at the moment.
And how was his wife through that period, and your relationship with her to talk?
Yeah, I think we've always had a really good relationship. We're really good friends as well. But I think looking back, I was more focused on Sam, and probably could have been a bit better in supporting other people as well. But I think my focus, I spoke to Sam every day, and I guess looking after him and looking after their family and looking after the business was kind of a way of showing support to everyone. But yeah, she was amazing, very, very strong, and had to deal with a hell of a lot and looking after a small boy as well.
I bet. I mean, it's just like I said at the start, it's heartbreaking. When did he actually pass away? I remember your LinkedIn post, and I remember my heart just dropped. Literally, I sent it around the business. I was like, we used to work with these guys, and genuinely just spoke to Amma. I rang Amma straight away, and I was like, did you see that? It's crazy. Makes you really think. When was it? Can you remind me?
Yeah, September. So early September last year, and even though he'd been in a hospice for a number of weeks and they looked after him amazingly, I went to see him in there. I was still massively at that stage of denial. I was laughing and joking in there and having a laugh with the doctors and nurses that were coming in, and he was clearly really not very well, and I probably wasn't listening to what they were saying, didn't want to hear what they were saying. And just passed at the beginning of September. And
can you remember what the last thing you said to him was? Last meeting you had?
Yeah. So he wasn't. His communication was fairly limited at that point. But they had a new nurse that came in, and it was the first time I think she'd seen Sam. And they always check, who's in the room with them. And she said, is it okay to sort of speak freely, because it was just me and him in there. And I said, oh yeah, don't worry, he's my partner. We can say anything in front of each other. And he hadn't said anything, and he just started laughing and said, no, it's not true, but carry on.
Yeah.
I think so. It's good to even to be able to have a bit of humour at that last moment.
Nice. Yeah. And then how did you? Can you remember where you were and how you received the news that he'd finally passed?
Yeah, so there's a Marks and Spencer's not far away, and it was my daughter's birthday on the day, on the 4th.
Is that the child that you had at the start, or is that a different?
No, so yeah, she's 9, so she was born in 2012, so a couple of years before. But we were in there. So Ocado hadn't delivered a couple of the items for her birthday breakfast on that morning. So we were at Marks and she's quite particular, and we were at Marks and Spencer's going to buy some croissants for her breakfast, and we were waiting at 8 o'clock in the morning to get in there. Yeah, literally. Remember getting the call, and I knew what it was straight away.
Was it his wife?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Like, I just think about me and Amma. Like, we've been best mates since the first day of uni. We run a business together. It's so similar. How can you how did you? Not how did you feel? I can imagine how you felt, but how did the next? Like, were you well, it's a weird question I'm trying to ask, but do you remember, like, were you conscious after that, or did you kind of almost lose yourself for a while? Because I've seen people at that moment where they find out something so dramatic, and it's as if they like leave their body for a bit. It's like they're just not in the room.
Yeah, so it was with the fact it was my daughter's birthday. We had loads of family coming over that afternoon, and we decided to go ahead with that. Yeah, and that was literally exactly how you describe it. It was an out of body experience. I was there, but I was almost like watching the whole thing on a TV video or something, because I wasn't there. I wasn't present at all. But it was the right thing to do in hindsight, and we kind of got through that day. And then the next day, we're lucky to have a good close circle of friends, and all got together, and that was a lot easier being able to be with people who were feeling the same emotions. But you can picture the stages of grief, and the denial for me quickly turned to anger. So I was very aware of that. I was quite angry for a long period of time.
Really?
And yeah, really, really angry.
In what way? Like just snappy with people, or what? How did it come out?
Probably just wanted to throttle anyone I saw for quite a period of time. Yeah, I was fairly, a few maybe minor road rage incidents, and I had to lay off. Yeah, I do kickboxing quite frequently. Had to lay off that for a couple of weeks, and just while I sorted the anger issues out a little bit. But it's quite natural, looking back, you can see it's just second stage of grief, processing that anger and dealing with it in a certain way. But yeah, it was pretty intense for a period of time, and I came back into work after a couple of days as well, and maybe not the best decision in hindsight, but people probably picked up on it as well.
I bet. How did the business respond? Obviously, they would have been sad and etc. But how did the team react in your own words?
It was just, as you can imagine, it was just really flat. So I felt a bit of a need to come in and gee everyone up and try and raise the spirits and lead from the front. I think probably in hindsight could have shown a bit more vulnerability, and maybe my empathy wasn't great due to the anger. So I was letting that cloud how I was, but I think I could have been a bit more vulnerable. But actually, I decided to come in and lead from the front. This is what Sam would have wanted. Let's continue the business this way. And it took a few weeks to get over it, but then the very lucky to have such a good team around me here, and everyone rallied round. And I guess after a few weeks of shock, people were sort of slowly getting back into the acceptance phase of what's happened, and went on to hit some really good performances last year. So great credit to the whole team, really.
And that's something I was thinking then. Like, how did you feel about that? Like, you've had your best year or whatever, but like you've lost your business partner. So like, could you get excited or happy, or could you enjoy any moments of the end of last year? Like, were you able to go put it to one side and be like, this is what Sam wanted, we've done really well,
Not so. When I was in that angry stage, definitely not. When I was in the angry stage, I was like, I can't be bothered with this anymore. We'll sell the business. We'll do something. I had no real interest in or drive to try and do anything. But as I became a bit more aware of the emotions, I'm like, don't make any rash decisions. Let's chill out for a little bit. And I think that's such a good way to be. And having that perspective in hindsight was, don't make any quick decisions now. What you're feeling isn't normal. Sit with it and work through those stages of grief, and then see how you come out and feel at the other end. But I've never been great for celebrating success anyway. It's definitely a big area of weakness. It's always on to the next thing. And you sit in any of our board meetings, it's like I mentioned, we had 44% year-on-year growth, which is a pretty good result. But it's 5 minutes on that, and then how are we going to do the same again next year? It's something I'm working on and trying.
We are trained, we're built that way in recruitment, though. Like we're bred a certain way. Like every firm, every one of us have worked for, pretty much had that same attitude, didn't they? Like you go out and get leathered for a day and enjoy something, but you go straight back. You make sure you're in on time the next day, and you fucking move on. And I'm exactly the same. Exactly the same. What interesting, like when you start a business, if you did you create a shareholders agreement with Sam? Did you
we did, but again, we're never the most good recruiters, but generally pretty terrible at running a business, and have picked it up gradually over the years, fairly slowly. But we did have that sort of stuff in place, and it was, at the time, you're ticking a box.
Yeah, and I remember when we did it, and they were like, "If one of you passes away," and I was a bit like, "Fucking bit morbid." Like I was almost like, "Do you know what I mean? Like, fucking kill the mood. Why don't you?" But then you think that if that happens, there's a situation that, like, what has happened to the business in terms of the ownership and the share, as much as you can share about that, because it's half the company's no longer there. What happens to that?
Yeah, so luckily, we had we had them agreed properly, proper shareholder agreements with solicitors and things like
Mm.
that. But again, paperwork's never always been our strongest forte. So a lot of Sam and I's agreements were done on WhatsApp or
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
on email. But luckily, we both had a really, really clear understanding of what was going to happen, and also very lucky that Sam's family, Sam's wife's one of my best friends as well. So it's fortunate that you can have a really good open dialogue with them, because if we didn't, and we weren't as close, it could be such a challenging situation. It was difficult anyway, because nobody really wants to talk about this sort of stuff, especially
No.
when the emotions are so raw. But we had insurance cover in place that would cover a good amount of money, and make sure that Sam's family got a good payout, which is gonna help them. But yeah, incredibly challenging, and I definitely recommend to anyone. It might be morbid and it might not seem like something you want to talk about, but it is absolutely essential, because we were two young, fit, healthy guys, and it
Which is
happened to us.
It's literally like that. You are the most traditional startup story in our sector, right? Two great
Yeah,
billers, good mates, crack on. I could, I'm working with 100 businesses just like yourselves, and you never think it'll be you, you know.
no,
But it could be, and I don't want it to be anyone in our sector, and I hope it doesn't happen to anyone listening. But I think it's important to reevaluate your documentation and just think, what would you want to happen? And I imagine, because you had a bit of time. I mean, did you ever let yourselves talk about it, like the worst case scenario, or was it always with Sam's kind of, I'll beat this mindset? Did you always put that to one side, as if we're not even going to go there because you are going to survive this?
yeah, I think before, kind of, with the way Sam's mind worked, and mine, I was, probably more guilty of it than him in some ways. Of, there wasn't much vulnerability between the two of us, to be honest with you. It was always like, how are we going to beat this? What are we going to do? But before, kind of, each mate, he had several major surgeries. He, pretty much lost the whole of his left lung as well.
Wow.
And before each kind of major surgery, we would always sit down and say, just in case anything happens, just so we're clear, this will be the plan. And it was like really, really good. But unfortunately, as recruiters, not much of that was perfectly documented.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was on emails, and not necessarily legally binding agreements. But we always had a very clear understanding of what the plan would be. So I guess at all those major milestones, we allowed ourselves to just talk about what the situation would be going forward, which was, I guess, just a nice bit of comfort for him as well.
Yeah. I think it's really special that you've got that relationship with his wife, because that would be the biggest challenge, wouldn't it? Imagine she was not on the same page, and you just don't want to think about that. But it's amazing, and you mentioned she's coming to work for the business now.
Yeah, so next month she's joining us. Finally managed to twist her arm, which is kind of nothing to do with the shares or even Sam's legacy. It's just more to do with, we really need some help at a leadership level, and she's a very, very talented person. So, yeah, very lucky to have her join the business next month.
That's amazing, and you'll spend more time with her as well. How are you feeling? So we're now 6 months ish past the point of him moving on. How are you? Where would you say you're at now with the whole grief stages, etc.?
So I think, in terms of Sam, like, in quite a good place now. I've been lucky enough to, we spoke about reaching out to people. I've been lucky enough to, I got recommended speak to a lady, Rhonda,
Rhonda
who
D'Ambrosio.
is, yeah,
Wicked.
and she's kind of been really helpful in just, I guess, the quality of my thinking, and the process, and compartmentalizing things.
Mm.
But that's not to say I don't have bad days. But I think if you look at stages 4 and 5 of the grief process, you've got depression and acceptance. So hopefully, I'm mostly in the acceptance phase now, which doesn't mean you don't still feel sadness and feel the pain, but you kind of understand where we're at, and you're coming to terms with it. And it's still, the strangest things will set you off, like, going to Marks and Spencer's is still difficult.
I bet, yeah. And there'll be
But
music, or there'll be sounds, or words, or pictures, or there's so many things that can trigger. Do you ever feel guilty that you're still there, still doing it? Because I think that's the first emotion I imagine feeling if it happened with me and my business partner, like, I'd feel like it should, why him and not me kind of thing.
Yeah, no, guilt's not necessarily been something that, luckily, I've felt too much. I've done a lot of reflection on, what would I have done differently?
Yeah.
Uh, Fortunately, I haven't had, too much guilt,
Good.
but definitely, I think vulnerability has just been a huge learning curve and could have been so much more vulnerable, which is something I've tried to work on a lot. And I don't, again, think it comes necessarily naturally to people in our roles that
Yeah.
much. And it didn't come naturally to Sam either. But I thought if I can take a lesson out of it, it's to try and be a bit more open and a bit more vulnerable in the future. Because if I'd have been more vulnerable with him or with others with what we were going through, I think that might have helped him be more vulnerable as well.
Yeah. I think you've done the best you can do, though, mate. I think, like, for when I met you guys, and you were so positive. Even he was, he's cracking jokes, and he was right in the middle of it all. I just think you gave off a vibe, like, I don't know, you made the rooms feel good. There was no, like, I didn't feel negative, like there was like a drain of energy, or I was worried about what we were saying, or you know, you, I think you managed it from what I saw incredibly well. And I think reflection is important, but again, I'm going through my journey with my coach as well, and I've been through a lot in the last few years, and you've got to be kind to yourself. I think learning for the future, but you got to accept the past, and think, right, what do I do now, rather than I wish I'd have changed X, because it's literally not reality, is it? And that it's coming back to reality. I think that anxiety is fear of the future. Depression can be often living in the past and thinking about what you've been through. But whenever you bring yourself back to reality, to today, to the present moment, there's not too much you can feel other than, like, what's going on, right? And if you stick to reality, that's what I always try and do now, is just focus on reality and not the what if scenario, which my brain naturally wants to go to every fucking day. Try and stop it. I just try and stop it.
Yeah, I think we've been quite lucky with that, and it's trying to, again, Sam's wife Josie as well, incredibly positive considering the impact it's had on her life, and it's about trying to, remember and celebrate the good things and make sure that all the positive stuff that Sam was about is continued and not forgotten, and that's a good way to try and help remember, not looking back in a negative way, but actually just in a positive way. We've got a charity football match next month, which I'm absolutely crapping myself about, trying to play 90 minutes without pulling a hamstring.
At Stamford Bridge.
No. We've got it's just near here, a local place, but it's our old football team, Highfield football team, coming
Right.
against another team raising money for charity.
Oh, charity! I thought you said a Chelsea football match. I was like, "What, you playing?"
Oh no,
Ah.
definitely not. But stuff like we're doing the Three Peaks again this year that we did with Sam previously, and just trying to be positive and remember all the good stuff that Sam taught us, and use his legacy in a way to create a positive impact going forward.
How's his boy? How's Finley?
Yeah, like considering everything that's happened, phenomenal. We went skiing with him a few weeks ago, and yeah, he's just like any other 10-year-old boy. He's way too fast a skier to keep up with, which is slightly terrifying considering he's got no fear. But considering everything that's happened to him, he's still banging in goals every weekend for his football team, doing very well at school, and yeah, incredible really when you consider everything that's happened.
Do you feel like a responsibility to look after him and his wife now, like as a almost, a second father figure, if you like?
Yeah, I think she does a very good job of taking on both roles, but yeah, I think trying to make sure to try and watch him play football and take an interest in what he's doing is something that comes quite naturally, and I think something that me and Sam spoke about before that was important to him. So yeah, that will be a big part going forward as well.
Yeah, it's. I think what you've done, the way you do it, the way you're able to talk about it is incredible, mate. I don't think, honestly, I can't even imagine being able to put myself in your shoes. So if we take ourselves to now, then we're 2022, we're March. It's fucking sunny outside, which is rare. That's positive. What does the future look like when you're looking now at and we go back to the business, where does Highfield go? What are you trying and how does what's happened change or impact in any way how you lead the business moving forward?
Yeah, I think definitely. Once I'd got out of that angry stage and thought, I'll just pack it all in. It's changed the mindset a fair bit, and I think even with when Sam was ill, the focus was enjoying the journey a lot more, making sure that was always really, really important, not just being too focused on that end destination. I think again, as recruiters, we're naturally incredibly ambitious people. That hasn't changed at all, if not grown even more. But it's making sure we're not just looking to trying to get somewhere, but trying to create a life that is enjoyable. And I love coming to work every day. Lucky enough to work with some amazing people. And the focus of the business has changed as well. When Sam was ill, we were always running the business with the handbrake on slightly. I think for two aspects. One, because you want there to be a good role for Sam to return to. We don't want to hire loads of other brilliant leaders and Sam come back into the business and be like, what am I going to do, mate? Thanks for that.
Yeah.
But also just maybe lowering that level of risk level in case something like COVID happened and we needed to get through and have good financial reserves to get us through any more difficult times. So I think now we've had some amazing people join the business in the last 6 months. We've got some great people, including Josie, joining the company. So it's a little bit like the handbrake's off now. We know what we need to do to grow the business. We've got some really good foundations in place. So it's, I think the next few years, the growth will be fairly ambitious.
And you mentioned there, it's about building a life you love whilst working, right? What does that look like for you? Like, what has to be part of it for you to be like, this is what I want to be doing. This is how I want to live my life.
I think for me, it's about creating opportunities for other people. Having a place that people love coming to work is number one. Our values are all about trust. And we spent the last probably 12, 18 months during COVID working on that internally. We had some lessons to learn. We weren't doing things as well as we could have been. And I think COVID was just such a good learning opportunity for so many people. And we've got the culture into a really, really strong place. We introduced a 4-day week last year, which I can imagine Sam's probably still not that happy about. But
how are you running that? What's your how are you making it happen? What's the plan for you?
It's just really focusing on outputs, holding people accountable to the outputs and, go and live your life, do what you want to do. So Friday is like our flexible day. Some people still come into the office if they want to, they're recruiters, they're driven.
Yeah.
I can get a bit of time to work on the business, which I love, rather than the 100 miles an hour of the normal working day. Having that bit of quiet time when there's just not so many inbound distractions has been really, really important in trying to grow the business. That thinking time, I always used to feel a little bit guilty about having it. Felt like I was slacking off. If my calendar's...
I'm literally exactly like you. I think we're all the fucking same.
Yeah.
Every time I have these interviews, I still have the moments where if I'm not on a call with someone, I'm not working.
Yeah.
I'm like, where the fuck? I own the fucking company. I can do what I want. But I have so many moments where I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. And then when I'm looking at numbers or strategy, I'm like, it's not real work, Sean. Get yourself out there. Go and fucking sell something. Go and meet someone. It's not.
Yeah, exactly the same. But no, I've tried to. I do understand how important and how valuable that is to the business now, and just very lucky. We've just got so many good people around the business that that can help me now. That's
almost like a flexible day, the Friday. If people can have it off with no questions asked, but if they want to work, they can. What if a job gets called in? Is there do you have to create protocols for certain scenarios that make sure the business doesn't let clients down, etc.?
Yeah, so we're all about customer service, so there will never be any drop off in service on a Friday for anyone. If you're playing golf on a Friday, then you're expected to take calls from clients if they come in. But if you're genuinely, you're at a Ibiza pool party and you can't take any calls, or you're probably not in a state to be taking any calls, as long as you've got you're covered up with someone who's going to say, look, if I'm doing this today, can you just shadow me and then I'll return the favor? It's all about trust, really, and treating people like grown-ups. If you empower people to do a good job, they tend to pay you back and then some.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And what have you seen in terms of results of productivity since bringing that in?
Productivity is phenomenal. I'm always, to pinch a phrase from James Osborne, positively discontent though.
Yeah, he said that on the podcast there as with us.
I'm always like that, you know. Our non-exec, I'll sit down in a board meeting and we'll have had the best quarter ever. And our non-exec will say to us, "You're always slightly pissed off, Liam." And it's just because I always think there's more opportunity. And at the moment, you know, you can see on LinkedIn, every recruitment business is breaking records. There's nothing unique about that at the moment. For me, it's how much are we outperforming the market? How much better are we? Are we just, you know, are we doing well because everybody's doing well and the market's growing? How much better are we internally than we were before? So productivity is definitely increasing. But I bore everyone internally with my favourite saying at the moment, which is the best time to fix the roof is when the sun's shining. So let's not rest on our laurels that everybody's breaking records at the moment. Everyone's, you know, our productivity per head's better than it's ever been. Every quarter's a record. But actually, how much better are we getting internally? How much more do our clients trust us? Are we getting better and not just bigger? So really focusing on that at the moment. And then when the next COVID pandemic, recession, whatever comes, you know, we're going to have so many more better relationships with our clients. Our business is going to be so much better internally that we'll be much more robust to deal with these sort of things in the future.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I think I've been through a journey recently as well. And me and Am are looking at our business and thinking about what do we want to be famous for? What do we want to do? You know, why are we doing it? And you can get so fixated on end goals that you forget about the day to day. And we've made some changes that feel really good this year. Like even from a health perspective, like I think with us on the marketing side, it's hard to. I want to do the 4-day. I'd love to, but you basically slicing 20% of your business away because we sell hours. We sell hours of time. So if you don't do Fridays, you're like, well, just slice 20% off the business. But we will work out a way of. I think we only do about half-day Fridays anyway. What I've done is like I posted about it literally this morning on LinkedIn is the health challenge stuff where last year I got so fixated on the business, I forgot about myself and what I wanted from it. And now, like I run every morning and then I've got a 2-hour window, 12 till 2, which I either go to the gym or go for a sauna or walk the dogs and I genuinely don't work. Like I'm fucking offline and it's been a game changer. Like I'm still really productive 8 till 12 and 2 till 6. And then if I need to be afterwards, but I protect those the hour in the morning, 2 at lunch. It's 3 whole hours a day that no fucker is getting hold of me. And I love it. Like it's mad. Like have you thought about obviously in reflection of life is fucking short. You more than anyone can contest to that now. Have you got any words of wisdom or advice or anything that's kind of you've changed or thought that would be useful to other recruitment owners that are going through this journey that, you know, they might not have the same level of what you've been through, but we could still learn some of those real lessons that you've picked up?
Yeah, I think about it, it's about working out what you want for yourself. What does good look like for you? Not good on Instagram or to be able to try and paint a picture of some amazing life that you're having because you're trying to compete with somebody else. You know, comparison's the theft of joy. So at the end of the day, you only really want to be competing with yourself. And I don't really look at our competition. I'm never that fussed about what they're doing. I just want to be better than we were last week, last month, last year. So work out what that looks like to you, and then make sure you create a life in your business that you want. Make sure that you know you're the most important person in the business. So make sure when you're coming into work, you're adding value and you're enjoying the things that you do. Because I don't think enough of us sit down to really look and reflect at what we should be doing. And the Fridays have just been great for that. And again, it's like we're going back to that thinking time isn't cheating time. It's probably the most important time of the week. And similarly to you, I have my own routines every day that I stick to that enable me to be a better husband, father, boss, colleague, all the rest of it. And I used to think that was selfish. I used to think it was selfish having my own time. but actually it helps everyone else around me. If I can be the best person, that I can be mentally and physically, everyone else benefits. So it's trying just to get comfortable with the fact that it's not selfish.
100%. Like even this morning, so I'm now living in a house with my partner, 2 kids, 2 dogs, right? Transformed in 12 months, my life. But going out for a run, getting back at 7:15 when they're, having breakfast, and it's 2, 7 and 8-year-old, 2 dogs. It's carnage. Like it's genuine carnage. Getting them to put their shoes on, getting them to brush their teeth. Like it's hilarious. But I feel way more patient after the run. If I don't go on a run, I feel automatically I'm a little bit agitated because I'm already thinking, right, I'm on calls at 8 or whatever. And, I feel like that I need those things to bring me down to a position where I'm better to be around, like without a doubt. Liam, I want to say thank you first and foremost, right, for sharing this. Because I remember I asked you a while ago and it just wasn't, it was too, I just said, I remember saying to you, look, when you're ready. I wanted to tell the story because I think it will help a lot of people. And I think you've been incredibly brave to do this. I'm not sure I could do it.
I'm still not sure I'm ready now.
Well, you know what? I think the industry will thank you. And the support in this industry is incredible. That's why I love it so much. The people you've surrounded yourself with in the TRN and through Rhonda and hopefully the people that listen to this show, they'll get behind you and they'll support you in every way possible. Thank you for everything that you've said and for what you've done. And I genuinely, I've got no doubt you're going to achieve everything you achieve and that the business will flourish. I'd love to get you back on again in maybe a year's time and see where we are in a year. And because I reckon there'll be so many more learnings in this year for you and for the business. And you'll probably give us another level of wisdom that perhaps it's too raw now. If you're open to that, I'd love it.
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
And if anyone wanted to just reach out and say hello and ask you any questions or whatever, are you open to that? If they message you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Particularly if anyone's been through anything similar or, more than happy to share the experience and see if we can help other people as well.
Thank you, mate. You're an absolute legend. And we'll definitely host that episode in the future. But in the meantime, stay safe and keep doing the amazing things you do.
Thanks, mate.
Appreciate it. Thank you, as always, for listening to today's show. I truly, truly hope that you got value from it. That's the only reason I take time every week is to ensure that my audience, future and existing recruitment owners are learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. Today's episode was brought to you by Hoxo Media. I am the CEO and founder of Hoxo Media, and we are the world's leading content marketing and personal branding agency for recruitment businesses specifically. So we are working with over 200 agencies and 2,000 recruiters right now, both managing the brands, producing content, building written, video, podcast content for niche recruitment agencies all over the world, as well as coaching at a desk level individual recruiters in your businesses how to be better on LinkedIn. That's how to brand themselves. That's how to produce content. That's how to use the opportunity on LinkedIn to get traffic to their profiles and turn that into business. We're coaching people all over the world every single day. If any of that sounds of interest, please do visit www.hoxomedia.com or drop me, Sean Anderson, a personal message on LinkedIn. I would love to talk to you. Tune in again next week. That's live on LinkedIn. I'll see you soon.